Well, welcome everyone to our second podcast for February. And today we're joined by a beautiful guest, Helen Russ. And just to give you a little brief introduction to her, Helen describes her work as developing a conscious, active relationship with ourselves, with the groups that we participate in, and with the places that we live. And I read this on your website, Helen, and what really drew me to you was that you start by saying it's time to stand with the earth, to be a positive force on the earth, and that we need to consciously and experientially be aware that we share our place with other forms of life. And I love this. And the conversation, I'm sure, today is going to introduce people to the beautiful work that you do. You also are hold an undergraduate degree in systems agriculture, majoring in environmental community development. So that's really interesting. And a PhD in the spirit of organizations. You also are a published author of 2 books, Experiences of Grace, and in which you share, I think, experiences of meditation and transformation. So that's another aspect to who you are. And also your second book, which I actually have here in front of me, because this is one of the ways in which I first came to connect with you, which is Across the Creek. Also, which isn't mentioned on your website, but the way that I came to know you was through being an artist. You're also an artist. So welcome, Helen. It's lovely for you to join Denny and I today.
Yeah. No, thank you. That's great. That's great. Yeah.
And we've been having a couple of conversations about land recently with you. Denny and I have been chatting through this, and we, through those conversations, realized that there was a beautiful podcast here that we would like to introduce you on and talk through the work that you do. And what you bring into the world as well. And welcome, Denny. Sorry, I should have mentioned you as well.
I'm also
carried away
with the book. I was thinking, actually, Fee, it'd be kind of interesting to let us know, or let the listeners know how we came to know or meet Helen.
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, Denny and I were out on retreat at Arkaroola, and we were journeying back from Arkaroola, from that retreat, actually, and we stopped at Narromine to have some lunch, I think. And I went into this beautiful place in Narromine, which I can't remember the name of now, but it's an art gallery. That's it, yes. It's an art gallery as well as a cafe, and your art was all over the walls, and it was just this amazing experience, which I'm sure we'll get into that in a moment, but just beautiful depictions of your connection to the land and well, what I can describe anyway, you probably maybe have a different way of describing the keepers of the land there. And it was just this beautiful, I think, acknowledgement of your work. And I picked up your book and actually bought 2 copies of your book, one for Denny and one for myself, so that we could explore your work more deeply.
Thank you. Yeah. I love doing that. Soul Food's a lovely cafe, and they're doing amazing. They're sort of an amazing crossing point. And the interesting thing is, I don't know if you tuned in while you were there, but it's an Aboriginal crossing point. The spirits, this Aboriginal energies going through that cafe, like it must be a kind of on a node or something. That's kind of interesting. Yeah.
I'm just wondering whether we can start maybe with that book, because it's something that I have, and I always know where it is. I never know where anything is in my house, but I always seem to be able to come across this book whenever I want it. And just there were so many pieces, particularly having just spent time on the land in a place like Arkaroola and Broken Hill and other places out there. There were just so many pieces that there were resonances with, having spent time on land. So I wonder if you can maybe just give us a little bit of a background into you and the land that Across the Creek is about.
Okay, so I grew up on northeast of Warren, sort of, if people know that country, Gilgandra, Collie, Canamble, kind of between there. And it's flat, dry, open country. And it's part of, well, it's on the edge of the Wiradjuri and the Ngamba Whalewan Aboriginal community. And when I was a kid, it was just the normal thing that kids do on a farm. You know, we had horses, which I loved, and we'd muster sheep and cattle, and there was farming on the property as well. I didn't do any tractor driving much, but just, you know, getting the cows in, mustering mobs of sheep, landmarking, you know, all those things as a kid. And there was sort of interesting things. We had an Aboriginal man worked on the property with us for a while, and there was a variety of experiences, but we kind of didn't take much notice of them. Like my mum would go out stick picking, and one day she was stick picking and we were there with her, but she was somewhere like off on her own, and she thought one of us had come up behind her, and she turned around and it was an Aboriginal spirit, like a man, there behind her, and gave her a terrible fright. But so there was also a kind of ominous Aboriginal presence that I felt that I think I blocked out. Anyway, then I'm a serious meditator. So I've done, since 1999, I've sort of changed my direction, and I'd worked for Greening Australia before. After I did my environmental agriculture thing, I worked for Greening Australia. And I remember one weekend, I'd been out planting trees with a community, and I heard on the news that night that in Queensland they were clearing country with a chain between two bulldozers. And it just hit me in such a strong way. And I thought, what I'm doing is never going to work. You know, there's not enough. We can never keep up with that. And so I realized then that the rot was on the inside, like inside us as people. And so I decided that I better clean up myself, basically. I had to go inside myself. And so in 1999, I started this serious meditation training, and where I lived in the meditation school, and, you know, we did, 6 weeks meditation straight, for example, from 8:30 in the morning until 9:30 at night. I mean, we had a couple of meal breaks and things, but basically practices all day, where one of the primary things, there's lots of things, but one of the things that I'm incredibly grateful for, and Across the Creek as a result of that, is that we learned to map consciousness, which is going inside with other people, putting your vision, putting your awareness on something, organizations, land, your own body, what's causing you to be blocked. You know, you can put it on anything. And through that vision, you see non-physical realities. And so anyway, so through that process, I started to reconnect with things that I'd probably been connected with when I was younger, but, you know, you get lost in the world. And I was living between Ireland and San Francisco, and obviously meditating, and I was running courses and stuff overseas to help people learn to meditate and things. And I was doing a practice one day, and this friend said to me, like, sometimes, as I'm sure you're aware in your practice, but you'll have a presence come through the space. And someone said to me one day, "Who's that?" And I went, "Oh, that's the women from home." But I'd never actually consciously recognized them. Like, I'd never actually, and so if someone wants to hold the book up, just the front, that'll show people what I was seeing. So it's a group of Aboriginal women sitting in a circle in a particular place at my home farm, about 300 meters from the house. And anyway, so I started doing practices, and anyway, while I was doing practices, I had issues with money. I seemed to get money, but I could never keep it. And I was thinking, right, well, let's source it. Let's find the source of that issue. And I would constantly find myself spreading the land at home at Baroola. And like I'd be a few acres, and I was in a layer in the land, a sort of top layer that felt hard, and I felt locked, and I wasn't happy in there. It's like dry and rigid and things. Anyway, so there was those kind of experiences. When I came back to Australia in 2012, I went across to where the women are, and I was standing there on the edge of the creek, this dry creek in Australia, and I'm having images of land energies in Ireland, because I've done, everywhere I go, I can't help myself. I'm doing land energy things. And so I was having these images of green and this, I discovered some really amazing feminine presences in Ireland that look quite different in the visuals, but they were coming through my psyche. That's weird. And I said to my friend, there's these images from Ireland of these feminine presences coming. And of the women, there's one that I consider like the MC, the master of ceremonies of the group. And she doesn't look at me often, but she just this slight grin came on her face. And I went, oh, it was like this dawning that I'd been all around the world looking for what was right here. And because I'd felt the land, the way we treated the land was male, and I'd felt the land was dry and harsh and all these things that from too much production, too much demand on it. And this heavy layer, this dense layer that on the surface, in my perception, has been created by the constant demands, like the constant demands for production. And anyway, so discovering the women was incredible, and they've been a guide in the whole journey. So I'll go somewhere and I'll tune into the women. I'll say, what do I need to see here? And I'll get this sense of that, or whatever. Yeah.
So once you discovered them, they never left you.
No, and they've been with me my whole life. Like they were with me when I was a little kid, but they were kind of in the background, because we were, doing stuff on the farm kind of thing, feeding the dogs and chooks. And when we were little, we had potty lambs and all that stuff. And, so there was all this action and there wasn't any focus on it. And so,
It's so incredibly powerful, that land, well, just the Central Australia, just away from any kind of too much of our white humanness city around. There's a different sense of connection. I know both Fee and I, through our travels out to land, when we've been back in Sydney, have felt the presence of elders, Aboriginal elders. Just that for me, it's very, I guess, because we go out and then we come back and then we get back into our lives, it's there and it's fleeting. It's like this connection that, like you say, that's there and then I lose it because I'm too connected to my usual life form, just everyday life.
It's the thing that's I find with this stuff, it's remembering. It's not why it's really nice to have a community around you or around me who have a similar sense, because they'll remind me when I forget, forget to tune in or forget to, I don't know, just to do the practices that you do that make everything better.
I love that perception as well of the, that realization of the land and how the land had been overworked, and that had a very masculine feel to it, a very masculine presence, because we've been sitting in that energy for so long with that perception of how we needed to, well, not work with the land, almost work against the land in that way. That was kind of really insightful for me, because I haven't thought about it in that way before, but it kind of makes perfect sense with what I feel sometimes in certain places when I'm traveling. So thank you for sharing that perception or that perspective on it.
I feel like there's a layer. So any people anywhere, well, hang on, let me step back a bit. To me, land is imprintable. You know, it's yin, and it accepts what we want. So if we put will into something, the land will make a space for us, kind of thing. It will, and it's imprintable. And so depending on what our intent is, that will shape the space of consciousness associated with everything. And I wanted to get away from the farm on one hand, and another hand I was pulled back there. Still I am pulled back there. But getting away was because, and this is the thing that came through across the creek, is whatever we do to the land, and I know people say this, but I experienced it through this process, is whatever we do to the land, we do to ourselves. And I felt locked, like I was locked in this production layer, because that was the space of consciousness that I was living in, that it was all about what you can produce, what we can produce. And I know I'm not blaming farmers or my family or anything, it's the paradigm that we're in, and if you don't make money from land, you'll lose it. And that's, you know, so there's these incredible pressures on people at the moment. But the thing that I always felt was that the land, and this has just got stronger and stronger, is that the land has its own life, it has its own rights, it has its own desire to achieve its greatest potential, whatever that is. And when we come in and superimpose our will on it without awareness, and we did, like, there's lots of things, like in Across the Creek, I saw the first white owner, and there's a picture in there of him. And poor bugger, like he was this total mix of, I saw him leering at the women, and like on one level he wanted to kill them because he wanted ownership of the land. He wanted to have it, like he'd come from somewhere else, and there's this massive desire in all of us to have a safe place, like a place to be. And he'd come here wanting that, and he saw the women or the Aboriginal people as a threat. He was completely and utterly intrigued by them. He was aroused by them. Like it was just this conflicted nature, and he was trying to like own the land so that he had a place. And I completely understand it. Like, you know, that desire to have a place, but because we've divided it all up and said, well, this is yours and that's mine, instead of, you know, perhaps in the way Aboriginal people, you know, used to be with land, because if you don't have a place, you'll starve, you know, that's the thing. When we incarnate on the earth, you can talk about our spiritual, like our vertical axis is our place on the earth spiritually, but we do need a physical place. And so, yeah.
I feel that confliction. There's times where I just sit and I wander around, you know, like I'm on the northern beaches, and just seeing the land being owned, these big buildings on land that we say are ours, and they often sit there completely empty. A lot of the massive mansions on the northern beaches do, because they're holiday homes or whatever. And it's just, there's a part of me that just cannot, or just feels that conflict, and that and I can't resolve it inside of this idea that a human being can own a piece of land. And I do hear you, that's a part of life, but there's also, it feels so very wrong, regardless of whether that's the place that we put ourselves in. Just that idea that we have that ownership over, rather than maybe a custodianship over. Something in that is just always sat so uncomfortably within me.
And I'm not sure what's the right model in this, because you've got different systems. One of the things I feel about what happens, like in farming families, there's if some of your listeners have a sense of this, there's often huge problems with intergenerational transfer, succession, who's going to take over the farm. And there's a family that I know really well that have, the family's just completely divided by the whole thing. It's horrific. And I have a feeling part of the reason this has happened in the way it's happened in Australia is because you've got a white, Westminster law system of law and governance superimposed on an Aboriginal system. The thing that what people don't understand is that Aboriginal people have woven fields or sacred weaves into the land, like this is a man's site. I mean, we understand it intellectually and we understand it more now, but there are literally weaves, right? And a weave is like, this is my analogy for it, it's like that place is a swimming pool. That place is a train station, spiritually. You don't go and have your baby in a train station. And you don't try and eat your dinner in the swimming pool. If you walk into the swimming pool, you're going to get wet. And so part of my mix-up in my energy that I kept sourcing was because my energy is completely woven into the land of Baroola because I've run around there and used my will there. And you've got a mix-up in the impulses that have been imprinted into that land. And so people get sick. I've got another friend who moved into a home. She's a woman, and she moved into a home that was on a men's site. And she's been kind of ill and had issues, like it triggered off some issues that are still with her. And so as a white person, you have this notion that I can just plonk a house there because I want to, and what you don't realize, well, if a swimming pool is there, darling, you're going to be living in water, in whatever way it is, not literally, but yeah. And then people wonder why they get sick, or why they're always fighting or things like that. And yeah.
Is that something that you work with yourself personally? Do you work with that awareness and knowledge with people?
I haven't done it professionally. I know a couple of people who do that professionally, but I'd love to do stuff with people on farms and on land, on bigger areas of land. I'm not sure about, in housing blocks in towns, it's still there, but I don't know what you do if, okay, I have done it, to be honest. Yeah. I mean, for example, I had a little girl in Ireland who kept waking up in the night, couldn't sleep, and her mother asked me if I could come and have a look. So I did. And there was an old house there that was built, and the new house was kind of half on that imprint, and they built a new house there. And when they built the house, they disturbed a land being that was there, and the land being was waking up the little girl. And so we did that. I've also, in another place in Ireland where I was, my friends had troubles with the electricity. The electricity in the house was just nuts, and the only way they could cope was to turn it off at night, turn off the mains. That's how bad it was. When we tuned in, it was like there was this wild woman running through the house with her hair pulled out, screaming energetically. And we sat and were tuning in and trying to find what was happening. And we started getting images of a bulldozer in the garden. And we kept getting drawn back to this particular place. And then we saw that this woman was some kind of a being that had been holding a geisha, like a water fountain, an energetic upward flowing fountain. And we didn't know what to do with vision. As you probably know in your own experience, you tune in and you keep using vision until something shifts, until you find what it was. And all of a sudden, because nothing was working, we were asking, what do we need to do here? What do we need to see? Whatever. And I can't remember exactly what happened, but all of a sudden she went and she did this most beautiful movement with her arms and her body, and went and sat on the site with her knees under her like that, and went back to her place. And it was calm. It was a phenomenal experience. And it was basically because whoever had built the house had gone in with the bulldozers, done the deal, and just ignored everything that was there. And she was disturbed. There was also, in that same house, there was another being in a round garden. So the driveway came around this garden, and we discovered, I can't remember how we discovered this, but anyway, there was a being in this garden that had retreated way down into the earth just because of the damage that had been done. And what happens in all these things, they're the same as us. You know, if somebody sees you, really sees you with love, you remember yourself and you come back to yourself. Well, that's my experience in all these energy work that I've done. Once you really see what the problem is or what happened, and you have to feel the hurt, acknowledge the hurt, feel the hurt. And once you do that, the being will usually return to its true nature, whatever that is. Yeah. It's fun. It's just incredible.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, I work quite a lot with what they always refer to themselves as the keepers of the land, but in some of the work that I do, I work with energetic space clearing and working. And around this area, there's a few pockets where you get beings that are connected to the land. They work with the land, and when properties are built over them, they cause discontent. So it's a very similar way of working, I think, to what you've described there. And it is absolutely fascinating and exciting. It's one of the parts of my work that I really enjoy, is actually connecting in with them and working with them and finding out what they need in this new way of being.
Because to me, I feel like all they need is us to be conscious of them and to have a like respectful relationship. I mean,
exactly.
With the women at home, I discovered about there's 4 sites I found within Kui of my home farm where the women are sitting, and where their particular energy nodes. And my sense is there's a whole network of them, and in that area, to me, it runs between the Castlereagh and the Macquarie River. That's the land system. And my feeling is if enough of us as the living, doesn't matter what colour you are, but enough of us as the living have a relationship with these nodes, the whole network would come alive. And I get a sense of a feeling of what that would feel like, but it would just be incredible. Like, imagine that. If we could get everyone in that land system to start looking for their, if they've got a node or something special on their place. You know?
So we take women out to land. And,
Yeah.
we've been on land or out to land a lot. And when you are and you're, I don't know, I'm going to sort of say working the land, whatever that means, it always feels like you're doing something, but you can't actually describe what you're doing. But what you're saying there feels like it's what women do when they're on land together. There's the sense of bringing it alive or connecting, weaving the lines. That's exactly how it feels, but there's no way to do it. It's just being there and being present, and
following the feelings in your body. That's the other, like, if your body wants to sit. You know, if there's birds, deal with them, push them out of the way, you know, like it's kind of like, yeah, go on, sorry.
No, absolutely. And there's also, there was just so many resonances with your book. There's also, I mean, as Fee knows, I get kind of like, it's almost like a little unfolding story. So when I go out to land, there's just, there's bits and pieces. So you had a part in the book about owls, the owls flying.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, which was just incredible. I mean, the large amount of owls that were flying, it was just that must have been spectacular.
It was amazing.
But things like that happen a lot. And it's just the slow piecing together of the witnessing of, okay, that means something, remember that, or that means something, and being able to put together some kind of loose story through it all. Is that your sort of the way you work?
Yeah, well, because you just follow. I mean, I literally, so that day I went to that's my friend's property, and they've done lots of land energy work. They've worked with Patrick McManaway, that I shared with you, and among other people, Kim Kiss as well. They've done a lot of work with, and anyway, I went. We were going to do land energy. I got out of the car, and Kate was there with me, and I dropped my energy down into the ground, and I just went, and so I just sort of feel myself and go down, and then I scan. I just look within the land and look for a node or something, and I just ask, usually the women. I just say to the women, okay, what do I need to see here? And it was like there. I said to Kate, there's a site just over there. It's not very far away. And you have to get round there. Like in that instance, there was sticklers and, there was stuff to climb around and everything. But we that's when we discovered this, there was a young women's menses site. It felt like a site where the older women would bring the young women when they just were starting their, periods, and they, and it was a site to learn around. But we found this massive obelisk of light that was coming up out of the land. That was the thing to see. And I put Kate on the thing because it's her land, and they were doing all this stuff to her energy, which was just hilarious, like making us laugh, just incredibly. And then we did a few things that day, and it was when I was driving home that owl thing happened. And it's sometimes it dawns on you afterwards in a way, because I'm driving down the road, and Kate had come with me, I think, to pick up a car or something from the front gate, and there's owl, an owl, one on a fence post, one flying in front of the car, it's just was, and there was 7 of them in a couple of kilometers, like that's, you see an owl, but not like that. And then not an owl, nothing, right? From their gate to my home, which was 20 miles or so, and then I turn over the gate, over the ramp into Baroola, and an owl goes. Pew. So it's the I mean, I don't know how you work it out, but it's a combination of all that. Like, you don't normally see it. And probably I went, when the owl flew past me, when I got to Baroola, I think that was the point when I realized, and that's when I had this sort of notion that that it's Billabula, which is Kate's place, and Barula's were somehow now connected through what we'd done. Kate had given me crystals to bring back to Barula as a gift. And yeah, with it. So yeah. I don't know how you know, but you just
know.
Well, I think it's just one of those, you just put it into the bank, and at some point because it can be a while, right? And then some point it's like,
I know what
weave it all together. Yeah, it just makes sense. I've had so many occasions of that where I guess there's also that piece of trust, just trusting in what you find, trusting in the messages, and knowing that they will eventually make sense. But there's also a lot of patience. Like anything to do with land requires a lot of patience.
Yeah. And a bit of fun and joy. Don't worry too much about it, I've got lots of techniques which are great, and just because people have got, often we're a bit mindy, we're in the Western world, we're all a bit mindy, and the techniques are good in a way because they give your mind something to do. Then the experiences happen kind of in the background or something. Yeah.
So maybe I think this would be a great time, because that gives our listeners a really beautiful perspective of where you're coming from and how you've had your journey. What is it that you do now? What's the work that really fills you with joy at the moment and connects you with all of these beautiful things that you do?
It's funny because when I was doing my PhD, right, so it's in the spirit of groups. So in a way you could say it's above the head. But when I was doing my PhD, I'd be in the books, and then in the afternoon I'd go out and on the land and just go for walks. But it was land energy walks. I just would feel, and I'd stop, and if I got an impulse to go that way, I'd go. If I got a feeling of lay on the ground, put my heart on the ground, I'd do it. I just follow whatever I was getting. And over this period, I've learned that, because it would happen both ways, I'd be doing land energy work and Lexian would come. Somehow, someone would come and ask me to do something with Lexian. And I've actually realized the two are they're one. You can't land a good idea. You don't land it into the ether, you land it into the earth. And everything is about loving the earth. The thing that makes me tick, at the moment, is when I can hold my vertical axis, rest in the center of the earth, and breathe with all levels and with all life. I've got this feeling, and it's been growing, that about us as multidimensional beings, and that we're actually by nature in touch with all dimensions at all times, in communion with all dimensions at all times. It's just our Western way has locked us in the third and fourth dimension. So the third dimension is the physical, what we recognize with the five senses, and the fourth dimension in this model, and it's a model, is the intellectual realm where we manage time and things like that. But in this model, there's 9 dimensions, and once you get above the fourth dimension, there's unity, where you recognize I am the tree, I am the bird, I am the earth, I am you, you're me in a different form, so you recognize one life. And yeah, the thing that just makes me happy is feeling that I am one life with. And I went up to the Warrumbungles, which I know you guys love, and just a little while ago, and I've discovered this massive being, the being of the Bungles, And to me, it feels like it feels like a he to me. He's connected way into the lava in the earth. You know, it's a volcanic tour coming up, and it feels like it connects to the beginning, like it's ancient, and goes all the way up. So I feel this, pardon me, this big, you know, with this massive being. And when I'm there, I can have, or even from here, when I tune in, I can have these experiences where I feel like I'm trying to match his bigness, you know, like awaken myself all the way down as far as he goes down, and awaken myself all the way up. And it's as if I am, you know, I can feel myself as part of, like I am a life within a sea of life. I'm not an individual person disconnected from you or from anyone else or any tree. And those are probably the experiences I like. And then if I can do that with other people, you know, I had an experience the other day where this was a dream, believe it or not, but where I was literally interacting with a person in a multi-dimensional way. Like I could feel all these different levels happening at once. And so, yeah, sharing that is, yeah, I feel like that's the madness of the world at the moment. I feel like this work, in whichever way it awakens for you or it touches you personally, but is our way out of it. We were doing practices recently on the Canberra convoy, just putting vision and bringing love, because what I often do is something I'm doing. We're starting in March again to do it every day for a month, new moon to new moon, over the solstices and equinoxes, and it's just holding love for whatever's happening for humanity in the earth. And with that, I could feel this massive heart rising. Like whether you agree with what's happening or not, I'm not worried about that. What we were tuning into was this, the heartness, this, and it was rising out of the earth, this amazing level of heart that I could feel. And I could feel that the love that these people were bringing was changing the land, energies there. Like people will come later and will feel the warmth of that. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that's the imprintable thing. Just you get so many people united in a, with an intent behind what they're doing. And I could really, it was amazing. The warmth and the glow that was above the earth and also below the earth. Yeah. Yeah.
Feel that just as you speak about it. Yeah. There's something that we take groups out to Uluru, and yeah. I think that what you're speaking of, that non-separation between us and earth, is very much the lesson that I'm getting from the people that are living there. That sense of we are earth. There is no separation, and I think that a lot of the Indigenous people just inherently get that. It just is. It's not even a, you know. But I think in teaching us, they know that we're disconnected, that it's us and earth, and what we do to earth is separate. It's not you do to yourself what you do to earth. So that in itself is so simple but so powerful. Just that non-separation between the two. Yeah, and I think that that it's us going out onto land to close that divide or learn that knowledge.
I completely agree, and I think people need experiences. People need real land, like that they can go back to and develop an ongoing relationship with. This thing that, you know, people grow up living in a box in the sky. I just think is yeah.
There's that piece, and then there's this piece of that we've been getting about a bridge, and this is the bridge between the people that have walked this land for tens of thousands of years and us. And I'm going to kind of say women, because I'm getting a sense that there's a lot of women going into land, and that there's this reciprocity that's happening between some Indigenous people and some women when they are in each other's company. And I think, Fee, and I've really felt that love that you spoke of, and it's this kind of unspoken kind of bridge that happens when both are open to each other with love. It's actually kind of overwhelming in its power, and it feels in a similar way to what you're talking about, and somehow this link between the two, between who we are now and who these people that hold the space for who the land has always been, is really important at the moment.
I completely agree. And one of with Across the Creek, the reason I wrote it is because the women kept telling me to write it. Like, I kept getting this, you've got to write this, and I thought, oh God, they'll think I'm a nuts initially, but then I did it. But that is because I actually think we provide a bridge. Oh, sorry, that's all good. Close that. I'll just close my email so it stops. There we are. Won't do it again now. I actually think I hope in writing Across the Creek, and I feel like you guys are doing the same thing, is that there needs to be a bridge between people who are just realizing, oh, maybe there's something here, and where do I go and how do I learn, kind of thing. And I remember as a kid, I didn't have a clue what the dream time was or what the dreaming was, right? And when I'd hear about Aboriginal stories, the dreaming stories, I just go, I don't get it. I just don't understand. And I feel like through this journey now I have an understanding of what the dreaming is, and what it is to be in the ancestor spirits kind of thing, or with the ancestor spirits. Like, I have a sense of that now. And I feel like people like me and you can provide a bridge between the two systems, because in a way we're walking two worlds. And I think that's really important, to be honest.
I think it's vital to bring these two very different ways of being together, is to understand we're not trying to be what the other way is. We're trying, what we need to do is work together side by side with this, and respect and love each other's visions or perspectives. There's one that's no better than the other. They need to come together now and blend and work forwards in a new way. And that, I think, sorry.
No, that's all right. It's like the being at the Warrumbungles that I met recently, and I just had the feeling like this being can teach me this a huge amount. And I feel like I would love to meet, some more Aboriginal people who could, I feel like there's a woman somewhere that can teach me. Like, I don't know what I need to learn. That's the thing. You don't know what you need to learn. But I feel like there's,
and that learning might be just as intangible as every other piece. You know what I mean? You're in the presence of it. It's all going in, but it's not like the Western way of learning. It's just
you've done that course, tick.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah, I mean, I think we've found when we've sat with the women at Uluru, it has been, nothing really has been spoken. It's all been through the feeling senses, and it's just been very visceral in the body rather than vocal through words, but massive in in so many different ways.
I had a healing with two ladies who are from the NPY lands in Adelaide a while ago, and it was so funny because they hardly spoke English. They a couple of words or whatever, but it was the Nankari healing, you know, and I just burst into tears. I just cried and cried and cried, and it was like, I mean, in my head I could say there was something, just the fact that they existed, you know, just the fact that they existed and were holding what they were holding, even though I didn't really know what they were holding, you know, like I experienced it, but I, like you were saying, Denny, I don't know, didn't know. Yeah. And I could feel when I was driving back, my energy was out across the land. I had the windows down in the car, and I felt massive, you know, like, and I was watching and feeling these landforms as I went through them change and things. And a meditation friend said to me, "That's been way bigger than you realize." And I said, "Yeah, I know, but I haven't got a clue what happened." Yeah.
And that was the thing that I got from your book also. And that was, it's so beautiful when you feel something and then someone that you don't know describes it. It's just like, oh, wow. Isn't that, it's another language that's obviously universal, that we can all feel. So a couple of things that I wanted to bring up that I read in your book was one, like the dome-like energy. So that feeling of and again, it was something that we all experienced, or I think few of us experienced, driving into Akarola. It was like as you went, it felt like we were going up. I don't know, were we going up, Fee? But it felt like we were driving up.
I think so, yeah.
And there was a certain place that you crossed over that was, everything just got brighter and lighter and easier, and it was almost like you drove into a dome of light.
Yes.
So tangible. It was just so tangible. I think you described exactly that.
Yes.
The space on the land.
Yes. There's one in Ireland, I remember, that if those of you have been to Glendalough, which is south of Dublin, and it's a site where St. Kevin meditated for 7 years in a cave. Now, the Catholic Church has taken over St. Kevin, and I have a very different perception of what St. Kevin was doing inside. Because we could see it. We did practices and we could see him. He was loving the land. There's a lady in the lake, and he was landing heartness in that place in case the world goes so dark that there will be, I'm in my vision, I don't know if I'm right, all these things, I don't know if I'm right, use your own vision, see what you reckon, but there's a feeling that there may be about 7 of these sites around the world that people have done something like this, where he was landing heartness so that if the world goes dark, heartness can be reseeded from this place. It's an incredible, incredible place. And so it had a natural land energies there. And then St. Kevin had done more weaving, if you like, and the monks who were around him. Now the church has come over, but where St. Kevin was is way up the hill and not walked over by all the, you know, the whole monastery thing. But we were walking there one day, and we literally walked out of the field in a foot. And I've also done it with the lines that we found, which may be like the ley lines. I found one through the haystack at home at Baroola, but there's also one that travels, I've seen west to east, more east, a bit south, outside White Cliffs. And the same experience there. That was the tunnel one. But when you step in, it was like you step in and the circle of life is whole, everything's beautiful, you know who you are, you know where you fit in the creation. You step out and you feel like you're in a Sydney train station, you know, it's like a teenager, half nutty, half ratty, you know, in comparison. So yeah, those are a couple I remember. I don't know if I talked about another dome, but yeah, I've had that, so yeah.
That, and there was also and I'm speaking these because I think our listeners, they may have experienced this and don't know, might have thought, yeah, do they really? The other one was standing on the top of this cliff edge, and or it was on a walk, and feeling this like bubbling up, almost like effervescent, like you're standing in a glass of fizzy water. And I think you described something similar to that as well.
Well, the energy well, when you stand on an energy well and it kind of goes up. I put my brother on one day when I was home. I said, Dad, come here and stand on there. And both our energy just went way down into the earth. And I said, do you get that? And he goes, but yeah.
So with that, are your brothers, you've got two brothers, right? Do they feel what you feel on the land?
Well, one of them doesn't do any land energy work at all, but he said to me about a particular site, in the book, the site where there's a big cone of light going into the earth in the Gilgai. Well, he says about that site, he said he got upset when Dad was clearing it. So we, removing the trees, and he told Dad that he shouldn't clear that site, and he doesn't know why. But anyway, the other brother does all sorts of things. He's done work with Patrick McManaway and Kim Kiss, the two I mentioned before, and things like homeopathic remedies on the land, things like communicating with the stock. So tuning into the stock if you're going to move them tomorrow, and just let them know what you're going to do with them, things like that. And like I've been on land energy walks with him, lots of them. One day, we had lots of one that was really surprising, I guess, is he was feeding some cattle, and we just said to each other, there's something over there. And we said, all right, let's have a look later on or something. And so we walked over to the site, and like, I don't know how you do it, but I imagine it's similar. You go really slow, like when you're doing this stuff, because you've got to be able to feel. You can't barrage through, because whatever you're approaching will have like threshold rings, or, that, and if you approach the ring, feel it, and then back off it a bit, and then request access, you'll see completely different things. So we were approaching really slowly, and there was an Aboriginal family on the creek, energetic, so not physical, and they were just settling down for the night. It was just a beautiful scene. But then I saw this shield, this astral shield that had been put up, and the original white farmer was to the north, and I could feel his energy coming over the land looking for them. And they put this shield up so that when he looked, his vision would go up without even realizing it, and he wouldn't see them. And I just remember thinking, that was the coolest thing ever. And so, yeah, there's things like that with my brother. And he does stuff. He goes up to the Warrumbungles as well. He gets drawn up there, and he's in a farming world, but he's exploring, and so it's different. I'm the one who's most into it, you'd probably say, because I've made it my life kind of thing, but yeah.
Beautiful. And so for those people that are listening to this podcast, Helen, what can you offer them? What do you offer for people if they're drawn to work with you in this respect?
So I've got 2 workshops planned at the moment. One's at the Martha Guy Hall, which is outside of Warren, and it's a 2-day workshop, and they take care of themselves in terms of accommodation and whatnot. And the same at Bugle Dye. I'm offering one at Bugle Dye. which are both on my website. I've also asked for expressions of interest to do a camping few days at the Warrumbungles, where we go and explore up there. They're the kind of formal things I've got organised, but if people want, I'm happy to go anywhere. I'm serious in terms of doing land energy things, because if I have got this thing I call the country halls tour, which country halls are great generally because they're out in the bush and there's usually a bit of land around them that we can explore without disturbing anybody. Like if you're in town, you might end up on somebody else's land or whatever, and they come and say, what are you doing here? So the country halls tour, I'm not sure how, I've never done one in a wool shed, in that the smell of lanolin might be a bit much in terms of when you're tuning in, because it's quite subtle. But if someone's got a shed or a room somewhere and they've got a few friends and they want to check out the land where they are, I'd also go and, I do private things with people if they want. It's like, talk to me.
Yay.
And what about your art, Helen? Are you still doing art?
I haven't been doing much lately because I don't do art for art's sake, which I probably should in a way, be good, but I do it to show something I've seen. And so in Across the Creek, as you've seen, maybe, pull out a picture for us.
I'm going to find one of your beautiful pictures. I'm going to find my favourite one if you keep talking.
All right. And so what I've done with Across the Creek is I take a photo because I wanted to show how important place is. It matters where you are, right? I am in relationship with the subtle energies in the north, the south, the east, and the west, right here. I'm in relationship with the trees that are just outside my window. And and the fact that the women are here in the site that they are and not over there matters. So what you do in this particular place, you could think of it like, and I know you know this, but for your listeners, you could think of it like you don't build a house on your nose. If you were going to build a house on the body, maybe on the shoulders would be a good spot. You do things where the energy is right for it. And so what I've done with the images in the book is I've photographed the actual location where the experience occurred and then drawn the picture that I see on top of it, as that's what my art is. Yeah.
I'm trying to share it this way. I don't know.
Lift it up.
Up?
That's the one. Oh, that's the one with the shield. That's the one I described. Yeah. It's a bit hard to see, but
it's a bit hard.
That's the gold that you can see there is the shield that was coming from, that they put up to block the energy from the north. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. So I probably should be doing more art because it's good. But I do just do it when I get a feeling about something, and I'd love to be fun to actually go out with a group of people and do art, draw, everyone do some drawing. We might do.
Let's do that. Let's do that.
All right. All right.
Yeah. I'm really drawn to, because I do my art here and then I go out into land, and I'm really, really drawn to pull the two together, which I've never done.
Yeah, well, like you guys, we mentioned before that I've been drawn to Akarula and haven't been yet, and I might have to come out to Alice with you at the end of the year. But maybe we can bring our paints with us.
Yeah. That's quite a big thing for me. I might have to make
do you do mainly oils or what?
No, I'm abstract. Oh, sorry, acrylics. But that said, I also do sort of journaling as well. So it would be much easier to do art in a journal when you're out on land than it would be to bring a big canvas out and try and bring all the paints with me. So
the watercolors are good for that sort of thing. Like if you're going out, because they're easier and
they're compact.
They're more compact. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Well, I know, Helen, that there is so much more we could talk. So we might have to have you back for a part 2 and explore this a little bit more. And I know we're in conversations at the moment, Denny, you and I, to see what there feels like there's something, a thread that's coming up, a journey out to land that's bubbling underneath the surface for us all. And so I'm really excited to see where that leads us.
Me too.
But for now, what we'll do is we'll put the details of your website in with the podcast, and hope that some of our listeners reach out to you as well and learn more of all the beautiful things that you do for the land. And thank you so much for coming in today and sharing your beauty with us.
Thank you. And it's really lovely for me to share like with you, because I don't know, even the questions you ask and things, it's wonderful because the world opens up, when there's more of us. I have this thing which is go with the goers, and the I don't know, it'll grow when you do that. It'll grow, and more people will be attracted to discovering what's there.
I also get the sense that we've already sat on land together, so that's maybe a future event that I can already feel has happened. So
awesome. Where? Can you feel it?
It's definitely out there somewhere. I don't know. I'm thinking that trip that we're called to do to link Uluru and Akarula, that feels like something amazing. And there's White Cliff in there as well. So there's something, maybe a convoy of us doing that trip.
Running Barula to it. There you are. Sorry. Makes me cry.
Amazing. Well, that's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, that'll happen. We'll sort it. There might be some others come with us.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll see you here again.
Yeah. Take care.